Hey Park Road kids, happy Easter. I'm here with Oliver and our two dogs that are down here. I don't know if you can see them or not, but they're here with us. And we wanted to wish you a happy Easter and give you a special children's church today from our house on this Easter Sunday. You want to say hi to everybody, Oliver?
Hi!
So some of you may have heard of resurrection eggs before, or maybe you've done them at church, or you've done them with your families at home. So we thought for today, on this Easter Sunday for Children's Church, we would go through all of Holy Week, the last week of Jesus's life, and go through the story of Easter using the resurrection egg. So Oliver's going to help, and we're going to read some scripture passages and go through the story of Holy Week all the way up till Easter. So let's start. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to read a passage of scripture, and then we're going to crack open an egg and see what's there and talk about each one. So let me read first from Matthew 21, starting in verse 2. It says, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. So, we start with the blue egg. So, what do we find in the blue egg, Oliver?
We find a donkey.
Donkey, show them. Hold it real high. A donkey, yeah, the animal that Jesus rode in to Jerusalem with on Palm Sunday. That's what we talked about last Sunday, and that begins Holy Week. Okay, so let's go then to number 2 and listen to this passage from Matthew chapter 26. Then one of the 12 disciples, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment he sought an opportunity to betray him. So now let's see what's inside. What color do we need? The light pink. The light pink egg. I think, is that the one? Yep. And what do we have in there?
Money.
Show them. Coins. Yeah, coins that commemorate the betrayal of Jesus, when Judas was paid 30 coins to hand over Jesus. Okay, so let's keep moving. Let me read you from Matthew 26, starting in verse 27 this time. And he, Jesus, took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." So let's open the light purple egg and see what we find inside. The light purple egg. Oh, what is it?
A wine cup.
A cup, yeah, like our communion cups at church, right? That commemorates Jesus celebrating the Last Supper when he celebrated the special dinner called Passover, which we talked about at the beginning of this month. He gathered with his 12 closest friends, his disciple. They traveled with him all the time. And he held this special meal that was very important to the people of Israel. And he broke bread with them, and he shared this wine with them. And at that meal, during this Last Supper, he gave us a new commandment to love one another. Okay, so let's keep moving then. That's on Thursday night, which we call Maundy Thursday, Thursday night of Holy Week. And then after the dinner, Jesus went to a certain place. In Mark chapter 14, it says, "And they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, 'Sit here while I pray.' And he took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, 'My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch.' So what's inside the orange egg? What do you see in the orange egg? Yeah, that's the one. No, the other one. There you go. What do we find in there? Praying hands. Yeah, lit up real high. Show it for the praying hands. Yeah. So Jesus was in the garden and he was praying very fervently. He was crying out to God for there to be any other way. But in the end, Jesus said, "If not my will, Father, let your will be done." So then Jesus is arrested. Judas comes with the Roman guards and they arrest him. And let's look at John chapter 19, verse 1. After Jesus had been arrested, he was beaten. And in John 19:1 it says, "Then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him." You know what flogging is? It's when you're whipped. So open up the green egg, Oliver. And what do we find there?
We find a whip.
A whip, yeah. One of the many ways that Jesus was tortured and hurt by those who were in power. Okay? Then we move on. We're at Good Friday now. We're turning from Maundy Thursday of Holy Week to Good Friday. And during that night, in the middle of the night, Jesus' disciples were also going through certain things. Let me read you Mark 14, starting in verse 71. It says, "But Peter began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, 'I do not know this man of whom you speak.'" Remember, people were coming up to Peter after Jesus had been arrested and saying, "I think you were with him. I think you were one of him, right? Aren't you with that man?" And Peter said, "No, not me." And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him earlier that night at the Last Supper, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. So what do we find in the yellow egg?
A rooster.
A rooster. The rooster that crowed 3 times, right? Okay. All right, we're moving along on Good Friday now. We're hearing the whole story of Holy Week, the last week of Jesus' life, which we also often call the Passion Week or the Passion of Jesus. We read Matthew 27. It says, "Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, 'Hail, King of the Jews.'" So what do we find in the light orange egg?
We find a crown of thorns.
Wow. Can you imagine that being placed on your head? Wow. Not right now, not that one. A real one.
That would not.
Yeah, that would be pretty painful. All right, so now Jesus is on the cross on Good Friday. And in John chapter 19 it says, "So they took Jesus and he went out, bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on either side, and Jesus between them." So what do we find in the light green egg?
We find a cross.
But what is the cross made of?
It's made of silver.
Silver. Well, what do you think that is? They look like nails, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cross made of nails. Just think about the nails that would have been much larger than those, right? That went into the hands and feet of Jesus. And on the cross, there he was placed in our place, right? He takes our sin upon himself, right? And he's punished in our place on this rough wooden cross. And there he died a few hours later. Okay? We're coming to the end, though. Good Friday passes, and as Jesus is on the cross, John 19 in verse 32 says, So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him, the other two men that were crucified next to Jesus. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. So open the purple egg. What do we find inside?
A spear.
A spear. Show them the spear, yeah. Wow. So that was thrust into the side of Jesus, right? But remember that Jesus gave up his life because of his love for sinners. And that includes you and me and everyone who tells lies or who steals from others or who disobeys God in any way, right? And so that's what Jesus was doing for all of us. He was taking away our sin. But then, not yet, you can't guess. You can't get ahead of the story. So Good Friday is passing. And then in Matthew 27, it says, when it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. So let's open the light blue egg. And what do we find inside?
We find a little,
What is it? Hold it up.
a little blanket.
Yeah, it's a linen, right? It's what Jesus would have been wrapped in. His body would have been wrapped very tightly because they were burying him. They were putting him in the tomb because he was dead. Okay, and then we come to Holy Saturday where the disciples scatter and they're afraid, right? And then Jesus is placed in the tomb and he rests there for that whole day on Saturday. He is dead in the grave. And then in Matthew 28 it says, and behold, this is Sunday morning, Easter morning, this morning. Behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. So what is inside of the pink egg?
There is a stone.
Stone, yeah, show them real good. A stone to commemorate the stone that was laid up, that was laid in front of Jesus' tomb. Okay, and then finally, Matthew 28, verse 5 says, but the angel said to the women, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen. And he said, come, see the place where he lay. And so now let's look in this last egg, the white one. Hold on, what do you think's in the white egg?
Nothing.
Why nothing?
Because there's like no, it's like Easter and there's no one in the cave. I mean like and the two women came and looked in the cave and they saw nothing. And this nothing means he risen.
That's awesome, great. Yeah, so what's in there? So you think there's nothing in there?
Yeah.
All right, open it up, show them real quick. Nothing. Nothing, because Jesus was not in the tomb. He had risen from the dead. The angel told them that he had risen. Jesus had come back to life. And this was the promise, remember, that Jesus made to his disciples at their special dinner on Thursday night of Holy Week, just a few days before, that he would die but come back to life to show those who believed in him that they would live forever too. Someday, because he died for us, we can meet him in heaven and thank him in heaven. That is the story of Easter, and it is absolutely true. We believe that Jesus absolutely rose from the dead, that he is alive, that he is sitting at God's right hand, and he will come back one day to bring his kingdom. And because Jesus rose from the dead, it means that we don't have to fear. Our sin is taken away, and we don't even have to fear the biggest enemy that we all have, which is death itself. Because we know, because Jesus has risen from the dead, that even one day when we die, that we will be with him in heaven. Isn't that great news? Isn't that good news? So we hope you have a great Easter. We hope you enjoyed that. If you don't have resurrection eggs and you'd like to learn more, you can talk to us at the church. We can tell you where to get some. Oliver, do you want to say anything else to everybody else at church? No, not really? No? Okay. Well, we hope you guys have a great Easter. We hope you enjoy your families, and we look forward to being back together soon again. We'll pray it will be sooner than we all expect. All right? Have a great day.
That's all for